Welcome to the Passion Intersect podcast. In today's episode, I have the pleasure to chat with the extraordinary Grace Nikae, a true polymath slash multi-passionate whose talents span between music, business, literature, storytelling, and advocacy. From captivating audiences with her outstanding piano performances in prestigious concert halls to shaping global brands' digital strategies as a marketing consultant, her multifaceted career is a testament to her boundless creativity and commitment to meaningful change. I couldn't possibly ask everything I had in mind for the sake of time, but this episode is filled with gems. Join us as we get into a thought provoking conversation with Grace Nikae. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Passion Intersect podcast. Today is special. I was waiting for this moment for a long, long time. Thank you for coming, Grace. Please
Thank you
introduce
so
yourself.
much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Grace Nikae. I am based in New York City. I am the founder of Kizuna and the Kizuna Studio, and I am a fractional CMO, brand advisor, and content strategist.
Amazing. I mean, I'm gonna do you justice by introducing you the way that you should be introduced. Oh my! Oh, like it will be like I guess it's like a 5 minute introduction with all the way you've done. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I'm gonna start off, to say that how I actually come across you, it was with on Twitter, and it was I think one of your posts that went viral. It was a rant, but it was a good rant, like amazing rant. Let's start off with that. Do you remember that particular post?
Yes. Is it the one with the wall where I showed a picture of my wall?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I remember that. Yes, I was only on Twitter for about a month, I think, before that post went viral. And in that 1 month, I had just had it with the content I saw on there. And I could feel it was one of those things where you could feel it bubbling up inside of you over like a couple of like weeks and so. So it was starting to build and build. And I was like, I gotta say something. I gotta say it. And so yeah, I basically went on this massive rant. I To illustrate the point, I posted a blank picture of a wall alongside it. And it was basically a rant that was, oh, I don't even know where to begin. That was just, I had just had it with these so-called tactics and very poor business advice that was proliferating the space. Um, I was exhausted with people talking about things like personal brand and community and things like that when it's been around for like decades. I don't understand, like, you know what I mean, like, but they're talking about it as if they discovered it, as it's like a buzzword, and they're like, all this kind of stuff. And it was just, it felt like, for me, doing the work that I do, it felt like it was this echo chamber of advice from like 15 years ago. It was that. And then so much of it was, I think what upset me the most was that there are a lot of new entrepreneurs or people who are trying to build a side business or trying to build a business for the first time, and they were getting bamboozled in these MLM schemes of like how to grow your following without any actual real guidance in terms of building a genuine business, right? And so it was a conflux of all these things coming together, and I was like, I gotta say something. And yeah, that blew up. That post blew up.
Yeah. I don't remember your actual following at that time, but it's that kind of post that you don't really care about how many followers the person has, and I noticed like your storytelling talent, your writing style, and it was an eloquent rant per se for a good
Thank
reason,
you.
you know.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And I mean, my second question would be like, what made you come to Twitter? Like, so I know at that time, yeah, that bubble was quite. You came into that particular bubble of where everyone was selling ghostwriting and personal branding, and a lot of those people were like 15 years old. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, so because of my area of expertise is, brand and content strategy, I obviously I understand the social space very well. And prior to starting Kizuna, I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually had built a leadership consulting business purely on TikTok. Like I was on TikTok for I think a year and a half, and I built a full-time business. I had no website, I had no newsletter, all these things that they tell you need to have. I had nothing except my TikTok platform, and I built a full-time leadership consulting business there. So I was on TikTok during the pandemic, all that period of time. That's really where I was focused. When I shifted into Kizuna and what I'm doing now, I always advocate that social media platforms are a tool. You need to understand the ways in which or how you can use them, how you can manage them to help your business and be aligned with your business goals. And for me, so much of the work that I do is certainly for myself, thought leadership, and then it's also working with founders and people who are sort of the executive decision makers for organizations. And I knew that that audience was either on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And so I didn't go to Instagram. I didn't go to TikTok. I didn't go to these other places. I knew that what it is that I wanted to do for Kizuna, this was where I needed to go. Unfortunately, like anyone who first joins Twitter finds out, when you first join Twitter, you get pulled into a certain echo chamber, and every single person goes through this. When you first join Twitter, you get pulled algorithmically into this subsection, and it's kind of about persistently and slowly making your way out of it, which I have slowly done. But but in the beginning, it's almost like a rite of passage. Everybody gets pulled into that bubble at the beginning. Yeah.
I see. So that's like was purely a strategic decision in a sense,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Got it. I remember actually talking with you about TikTok, and I remember you said like
Yeah.
it was one
That's
of
right.
your favorite platform, which is not really the case for me. But I think it's because I didn't really use it in a strategic way. So you tell me more about it. Like, what made you actually go to TikTok in the first place? Because for me, this is a really personal opinion, but I was indoctrinated into it, thinking that, in my opinion, that it's purely a child app, um,
Ah.
like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, perhaps, until I understood its real power.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have that misconception. So I'm glad we're talking about it because I think people think it's like, oh, it's just like dancing people or something, right? Like they still kind of have this idea of it, right? But this was at the start of 2020. So right around when the pandemic hit was when I joined TikTok. So I was trying to figure out. So I used to work. I was head of corporate marketing for a hotel, and then COVID pandemic shut travel down. Right. So I was trying to figure out what I would do next, and so I was looking at all the different social platforms, and one of the biggest things I always encourage marketers. I'm a big believer that you should also be a practitioner, meaning to not go onto Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or anywhere if you haven't spent time as a consumer and using it first, because that's the only way to be able to truly grasp and understand what the nuances and the soul or personality of each platform is, because it's very different on each platform. And if you're not using it, if you're not in the groove of it, if you're not actually consuming it, then it becomes very, very difficult as a creator to understand what's going to translate and how the consumer is taking things in. So the first thing I did is I joined TikTok as a consumer because I knew that of all the social media platforms, TikTok and LinkedIn were the only ones, this is in 2020, right? TikTok and LinkedIn were the only ones where you could still grow organically without paying for boosting or paying for ads and getting that you could grow. So I wanted to figure it out. I hadn't used TikTok prior to that. So I jumped onto it. I knew it was growing fast. So I hopped onto it. And basically for about a month, I just used it as a consumer. I was on there. I was starting to understand how the algorithm worked and like what kind of content resonated. And what I saw, and what I think is actually what TikTok is certainly it's a storytelling platform. I think enormously based in storytelling. enormously based on the idea of authenticity. If you are not authentic on TikTok, they will eviscerate you. They will take you down in the comments. They will destroy you in about 5 minutes. So authenticity is super important there. Number three, I think it is an education platform. I think essentially TikTok is an education platform, which is why it has taken over so much in terms of when people are searching for a restaurant or searching for information, they actually don't go to Google anymore. So more and more people are going to TikTok and entering in the search whatever it is that they're trying to find. It's an education platform. So the people who have, the creators who have thrived there are people who are teaching. I mean, and it could be literally anything. It could be cooking. It could be, I don't know, how to write or how to paint, or things like I talked about empowerment and leadership, right? Like I was coaching people through that. Infinite ways to be able to leverage in that sense. But it is not a child's app. It is still, in my opinion, the most powerful social media platform right now. YouTube Shorts is also coming up very, very strong right now. I think in 2024, we're recording this in April.
Yeah.
YouTube Shorts is coming in strong to this kind of short form video. So I think those are the two platforms right now that have the most impact. And if you're looking to do that as a creator, I would suggest both. I know a lot of people don't like video, but that would be my suggestion.
So I take your suggestion really strongly. I'm going to TikTok. Coming to TikTok.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's so true, with the search-based form, because I had an account where I was just sharing like my learnings on Japanese and so on.
Okay.
Was doing that for like 2 weeks or so, really just as a hobby. And now, like, it's 1 year later, I didn't publish like for 8 months or so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
up until now, I'm getting views, likes, comments,
Yeah.
followers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what I have been doing? What?
Yeah.
I was on Twitter. Should I have gone to TikTok instead of Twitter? But it's all good. We won't live on regret.
I think for you, and like just from your personality and what I sense in your content, I think you would do very well on TikTok. I really do.
Thank you.
I encourage you. And you can still on TikTok, you can still organically grow very, very quickly. Many, many, many times faster than Twitter. So for example, I've been on Twitter for 8 months now, I guess, because I joined in July, so about 8 months. And I'm at 1,500, a little bit, almost 1,600 followers. And I had a couple of, posts hit big, right, and go viral. And still, it's about that much with me posting every day. On TikTok, I have over 82,000 followers, right? And that was something that grew within a couple of months because something about the way the content is amplified and how it's so targeted on the For You page, the effect is compounded. So if you are looking to grow organically, highly recommend TikTok's place to go. Yeah.
All right then. Going to is. People listening will, I guess, ask themselves, how do you know all of that stuff? But they don't know that you've been doing that for 15 years. So I'm doing
Yes.
things like a little bit backwards, but let's get into it. Like, I know you were born in Japan, you were raised in Hawaii, and actually started, musical education at the age of 9, but not 9 years old, 9 months.
Yeah.
And when I learned that, I was like, how?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I should have. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send you a photo of that first piano lesson. I'm literally still
Oh,
in
that would be amazing.
I'm in diapers still, but as soon as I could sit up, my mother placed me in front of the piano, and I was already obsessed with music by that point. Even before I was born, she talked about how she would listen to music, and I would react so strongly inside of her. And
Wow.
my mother is an amateur pianist, so she actually was my first teacher. So as soon as I was born, if she played the piano or if music came on, my reaction was so strong. So as soon as I could sit up, she sat me at the piano, and that's when a lot of things came to light. I certainly learned very quickly. I had perfect pitch. I had, a number of other things that she became aware of, as I played on the piano. And by the age of 3 years old, I was playing concertos, Haydn concertos. Yeah.
Wow. That's really, really impressive. That's insane to me, but very, very impressive. It sounds like to me like yeah, you were placed into that, but still, in a sense, you became passionate about the piano. I listened to a couple of your podcast appearances on other hosts, and I learned that still at some point you were to a point where you ask yourself, like, you want to reconnect with the why, because you were performing, and all of your life was centered around performing the piano. Like, can you tell me more about that?
Sure, I love that. And I really want to emphasize this because I think oftentimes people make a misconception that, oh, your mom must have pushed you or your parents pushed you. And it wasn't like that at all. Like, I literally, this was my passion. It was the love of my life. Still is. Music is my first love. It was where I discovered how to express my voice through music. But the thing is, all of us are, what it means to be human is to be so much more than just our passions or what we love or what we do. And it's very easy sometimes, even in the entrepreneurial world, if you're like, right now, super hyper focused on your business, it's very easy to neglect and forget that we are more than this, right? Because we become super focused and we become like, oh, what it, and throughout my life, obviously music was an enormous part of it, and I was performing, and I I certainly had other interests. I loved reading and writing and coding and 10 million other things, but I didn't really have a chance to explore them or explore who I am because I was so singularly focused on this career, right, and this path. And because in order to be able to get to the level that I got to in such a competitive art, right, it's like getting to the Olympics, right? Like, it requires absolute focus and absolute discipline and absolute, all of that stuff for years and years and years and years. So then I got there. I got to that place, right? And I'm kind of having that life where I'm like touring as a soloist all over the world and I'm doing all of that. But I started to feel like I didn't own my life. And it's really hard because I've thought about this many times and talked about this, quite a few times about how best to explain that feeling because it was such a complex feeling, but I think it comes down to that idea that I didn't feel like I owned my life, meaning I am more than this. Not that I don't love this, but I am more than this also. And I want the opportunity to be able to find out who I am, right? And what's so interesting now that I look back on it, because it was one of the greatest decisions I ever made in my life to leave music, one of the hardest, most epic kind of decisions. But I think the danger is always allowing other people to confine you to the limitations that define them and not you.
Mm.
So, meaning, I think it was that people define me as a pianist. Other people, that's all they saw me as pianist Grace. And I sort of fell into allowing them to define me that way my whole life, right? Like that's all I was. And I fell back into their construct. So when I made the decision to leave music, that was me saying, I am more than this, and I'm going to go and find out who I am. And that was very, very hard for other people to accept because I challenged this idea they had of me, right, of my identity. And I said, no, that is one part of my identity, but not all of it. And I'm going to find out what that is. And I think and I bring that up because that was the first time I really went through that and really had to kind of confront that. But it is something that has come up time and time and time again in my life. And I think this applies to anyone who's listening, that we need to be so intentional, so self aware to not, because it's so easy to fall back into the construct of what you're supposed to or should or what, and you don't even realize it. You don't even realize you're doing it a lot of times, and that's how intentional and aware we have to be about it. And I still, even though I've moved through it several times in my life, I still have to always be aware, like, is this what I really want? Is this what I want to do? Is this aligned with me? Or am I kind of stopping myself, or am I doing this or that because I'm worried about, something that's not my construct, but belongs to someone else. So that was kind of long-winded, but kind of my way around that. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I relate to a lot to this. By not any means, I'm not a pianist. I don't have any kind of that talent to that extent, but I see a similarity with almost like just the word that I have for it is personal branding. But for
Mhm.
people coming online, and the one advice that I always saw on the beginning, especially when I transitioned from sports betting to wanting to become a freelancer, the one advice that I always saw was pick a skill and then start writing about it, and then that's pretty much it. Cannot talk about anything else. Uh,
Yeah.
you become the skill, you become whatever that might be, and that's it. People will know you for that, and people expect from you that you only talk about that. And if you talk about anything else, they unfollow you. And a lot of people are actually going that into that direction blindly, in a sense, because they think that that's the only way, or that's the only way that will bring results. And I've spoke to so many people, which begs the question, like of niching down, not niching down, blah blah blah, yada yada. And it actually messes you up a lot. it's
Yes.
a it's very easy to get into it, but it's kind of hard to get out of it. Personally, it took me an ACL injury to understand that I
Oh,
had to get out of it, because I was always constantly on the computer, rarely zooming out, understanding that that's not really what I want to do. And when I had the injury, I couldn't come to the computer anymore, so I had to actually sit back with my thoughts. You see,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
where all of that came into place. Like, I was only creating content about Shopify, e-commerce stores, blah blah blah. And I understood that that's not really what I want to do. I understood that was like, in a sense, content marketing, but there's also self-expression content, in a sense, that actually allowed me to meet you, to meet all of my other guests. It was not because I shared how to grow an e-commerce
Exactly.
store or whatever, or how to build a
Exactly.
Shopify store, but was just sharing perspectives. And what do you think about that? Like, people boxing
Yeah.
themselves in, thinking that it's the only solution as a content marketing strategist.
Because it's when you do that, it's like amputating yourself, right? You literally amputate all the parts of yourself to just show this tiny little part of you on this one thing. And imagine if that. So here's the thing that I think people don't realize. I always talk about how online, meaning social media, is simply an amplification of human nature and real life. The dynamics do not change, right? So imagine you met someone in real life who only talked about Shopify. Can you imagine? Like literally everything out of their mouth is just that. First of all, it's incredibly boring, no connection. You would walk away and tune out in probably like, 3 minutes because you'd be like, oh my God, this guy can't even, you would never want to work with them, right? Like it's because there's no bond, there's no connection there. It is exactly the same thing online. And it blows my mind when I see people just talking about the most narrow thing and literally no one cares. No one cares. You're just saying all this stuff and you're not allowing for genuine connection or genuine relationships to be built. That can only happen when you show, I love that word that you used, perspective. When you show the way in which you view the world, right? This is where alignment happens. This is where you start to bring in people who are aligned to you, who they will come into your circle if they feel they are aligned to you. Hey, I like the way he looks at the world. I like his take on books. I like his take on beauty. I like his take on that. It's these things that bring people in and allow you to feel closeness and connection, right? And from there, of course, the discussion can lead into business. But if you're just talking about I mean, I literally, I have muted and blocked so many people because I can't, like, it's just unbelievable. So please don't do this. This is not how a business is built. You're just gonna, people are just gonna tune you out. And I think one of the things that I'm actually giving a masterclass on this later this month, but I think people misinterpret what brand authority and brand expertise is. So I'm going to dive just a little bit into this because I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about. So there's something called implicit and explicit value. And I think these people who narrow in on a niche and who keep just talking about one thing, they're trying so hard to prove they know something, right? They're trying so hard to prove and like that they know like web design, or they know this or they know that. So they keep talking about it and talking about it. And they think that their clients or customers will like understand that, right? Will think that they are an expert or think that they are an authority because they do this. But here's the thing. I want you to kind of put yourself into the shoes of a customer, right? And, or let's say you're a founder or something, and you need someone to do a website design for you. You don't know anything about website design, right? So you're like kind of like looking for someone to, do you think they actually care and are going to be sitting there reading all of your stuff about like the rounding of a button or like why does it? No, right? I mean, that's great with your industry peers, right? If you're talking to other designers, if you're talking to other people and you're like, hey, how do you do this? Or like, this is my strategy for doing this. Okay, that's one thing. But your customers are hiring you because they don't care about it or they don't know about it. So telling them all of your technique and trying to prove something about your expertise does nothing. Absolutely nothing, because it doesn't even, that's not what they're hiring you to take care of it. They don't want to see all of that. They don't want to read all of that. So that's what we call explicit value. When you're just saying all this technical stuff, we're just talking about niching and you think that that provides authority. That's not where the power is. The power of connection lies in implicit value. And implicit value has nothing to do necessarily with externally the skills or service or offers you are providing. So I'll give an example. I had a tweet this is a while ago, I had a tweet do really, really well in which I posted, nonfiction books tell you what to think. Fiction books challenge you to think, right? It was just 2 sentences and it did very, very well. How does that relate to brand content? On the surface, it has nothing to do with what it is that I do, right? I mean, it's about books. Like, it shows nothing about brand or content strategy. However, indirectly, implicitly, what does it say? It tells you that I'm very well read. It tells you I am not afraid to state my opinion. I don't give a shit if the nonfiction bros come after me. I will say what I want to say. It tells me I value creativity and thinking for oneself and innovation, right? Because what I said about fiction books. It tells you, and even stuff like not caring what other people think and being able to express myself is a form of leadership, right? So there are all these other nuances in human dynamics that are very important that can be revealed in just a simple tweet. That's implicit value. And that actually goes far further in building trust, brand trust, than you spewing about like, I made 10K in 2 months and you can, okay, you know, like no one cares. Like that doesn't, you know what I mean? That doesn't tell me about the qualities that I want to know about someone I want to work with. Right? Like, can I trust you? Where's the trust built if I don't know anything you do outside of this 10K thing? Like, who are you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, tell me your opinions, your thoughts on things so I know how you think. And that's the danger, I think, that so many people fall into. To really think about brand trust and authority in the same way you would human trust in relationships. How is that built? By getting to know someone, right? You wouldn't have trust in someone that just talks about Shopify 24 hours a day. Like you just would not. It would not be built. That connection would not be built. It's the same thing.
You know, that's funny because most people who I would say get screwed over, whether by someone not doing really well their job or just ghosted whatsoever, is because they hired them based off of solely skills, thinking that they will do the job, but they don't know much more about them. Like, no, they don't know their values. They don't know what they stand for. They don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
if they're actually trustworthy,
Yes.
and they end up get screwed over. And then
Yes.
now you have actually a new wall, because now how actually can you find someone now? Oh, you think, okay, someone screwed me over. I have to ask for a referral, and then you ask for a referral, you can get screwed over again. And then third try, you want to do it yourself, and then
Yes.
it's crazy. I heard that so many times with my actual clients that I got with cold emails, and so I had
Oh,
to gain their trust with emails. They
yeah.
don't know me, blah blah blah. But again, like, same cycle. Like, who are you? What do you
Yeah.
do? We have to jump on a call.
Yeah.
And yeah, they get screwed over by so many marketing agencies. Like, they don't really care
Yeah.
about any much than just your money, in a sense. Not all
Yeah.
marketing agencies, obviously, but uh, from their experience per se. And so they
Yeah.
prefer now working with, like, they are allergic to the word marketing
Hmm.
agency.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
they
Uh-huh.
work with freelancer is
Yeah.
way better
Yeah.
than saying I have a marketing
Yeah.
agency. I swear to God. From the moment that I say, like, I have a marketing agency, don't want to work with you. And then when I say,
It's
yeah,
interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
freelancer, okay, yeah, let's jump on a call. It's People would say perhaps the opposite, but in personally,
Mm.
I experienced the opposite. Like, freelancer
I can
had.
see that. Yeah. I can see that. And I think it's because it's like what you said, like here's I think why so much of the advice is so bad, like on Twitter or other places. It's because it's trying to it's gimmicky tactics to try to shortcut something that you cannot shortcut. You
Mm,
cannot shortcut time. You cannot shortcut the human element, right? To build relationships, to build trust. You would be God. And if you could do that, you would be God. No, none of us are. No one can, no one can shortcut time. Absolutely not, right? And that's the part that I think, and that's why people get, messed up and they get like screwed over and then they get upset. And it's like, and they would rather work with a person, right? An actual human being, because then they can build that relationship. So I can totally see what you're saying. Yeah. About freelancer. Yeah.
do you have, like, any bad experience with hiring people? Like, what's your process to actually work with people? Whether you met them on social media, whatever that might be.
Yeah. For me, it's always, it has to be a win-win, meaning that uh, I want me to be an ideal fit for them. And then they need to also be an ideal fit for me. Like it has to be win-win. I approach many things in life, whether it's community and other things, that it's about that. We all uplift one another, right? So when I first get into conversations with a potential client, it's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of kind of diving in to really understand and clarify what they're struggling with. Can I really help them? Right? Is it a good fit? Like, do my skills align with it? If not, I happily send them to someone who can, or someone I know who is a better fit. Right? But am I aligned with where they're at? Do they actually need my help now? Maybe they need my help after they take care of another 2 steps first, and then I can come in. Or like, there's all sorts of things there. So I make sure that part's a fit. What I look for personally, because we all have had experiences with bad clients as well. It's like a rite of passage for anyone who's working with clients. It always happens. So here's my sort of gauge and how I decide that. The biggest thing I'm looking for when I am talking to a potential client is their capacity to change.
Mm.
Are they able, like, are they flexible enough here and open enough? Because this process of brand building and content building, business development, so much of it is internal growth. Like that's manifested in external growth. Are they able to move through that? If I push them, can they get through their fear? Can they move through their fear? Can they move through their resistance? Will they be able to do that? That's what I'm looking for. So I am looking for their capacity to grow and their capacity to change. that's my biggest limit, because I've come across people who are like, yeah, that, big money, they want to do this, they want to do that, but I can tell already that anything I say, if we work together, they're just going to be blocked off. They're not going to be able to take it. They're not going to be able to. That's a bad client. So look for that capacity for openness. I think openness and flexibility to grow. That, I think, for anyone working with clients might be a good barometer to check. Yeah.
Very, very good point. Yeah, honestly, I didn't have any bad clients. I'm on the opposite side where I
Oh,
got
you're
screwed
lucky.
over.
Lucky. Oh.
Yeah, a long time ago. But yeah, gladly for now. Like I guess it's all about like red flags. I never really was desperate, gladly, to take like any type of clients whatsoever. I
Mhm, mhm.
refused, even with a zero bank account. I was like, no, I don't want to work with you. Um, just because of what you said, the
Yeah.
energy working with a bad client is insanely no,
Yeah.
underrated, is the
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
word for that,
Yeah.
instead of just not working with it, and
Yeah.
still having the zero in your bank account. And
Agree.
so yeah, gladly. If someone listening to this, you have the
Yes. Please don't work with a bad. Yes, I cannot emphasize this enough. What it does to your mental and emotional, it's not worth it. It is never worth it. Never, ever, ever worth it. Yeah.
I just listened to a video on YouTube, like, yeah, this morning, about mental models, and this guy was doing analogies with chess strategies.
Okay. Okay.
And his company, I don't even know what, maybe marketing agency whatsoever, their revenue, 10% of that was with one client, but that one client, giving them that 10%, was taking, he said, around 80-70% of their energy bandwidth, like him, his team. And so the strategy was like to actually, take a step back, and even if it means slower results, less money, whatever that might be, that seems negative on the front end, but on the back end, it will actually help you get further. From the moment they fired that client, uh, yeah, they got the 10% drop of revenue for like 2 months or so. But then after the third month, ThreadX tripled their revenue
Yeah.
and made even more and more money, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. That's an excellent example. Exactly. Because when it's a bad client, it does. It takes up that extra mental, emotional energy that is not, it's just not worth it. Exactly what you said. You can free it up and bring in something much better. Yeah.
It makes me realize also that, yeah, you created the community Kizuna, and I also already told you that you have the ability to, I'd say, attract like-minded people. We all attract some trolls, but sometimes with viral posts and so on. But overall, I'd say Twitter, in a sense, has a lot of great people,
Yeah.
and you managed to attract a handful of those people. And I'm curious on how you did that.
It's a great question. And thank you, by the way. That's such a lovely,
Pleasure.
lovely thing to say. And I really appreciate it. Here's what I always tell my clients, and hopefully this is advice that will help many of you who are watching this. I'd like you to be very clear, first and foremost, about what you want to feel when you hop onto your social media platforms. Like, I think it's so sad when people are so miserable about, like, oh, I don't want to go onto Twitter. Or I don't want to, like, I have to go and post something. Like, and that's a terrible thing, right? Because that platform, that account is like it's like your online home. It's where you're building relationships with people, you're meeting people, you're having conversations with people. It should feel good, right? When you go on, you should feel happy to go on and talk with people and see what everyone is up to today and all of that. So I want you to imagine, I think, as an exercise, what is it that you want to see in your accounts when you hop on online? Meaning, what is happening in your comment section? Are people talking to one another? Are there inside jokes? Are there, like, super, maybe you want something very thoughtful and profound? Or do you want, like, what's happening in your comment section, right? What kind of conversations are you having with people who are around you? Like, are you guys laughing? Are you guys doing memes? Are you like joking with one another? Are you like, is it intellectual ideas? Everybody is different, right? So, but whatever it is, for you to really think about what the ideal feeling would be, what would ideally be happening? Okay, whatever it is that you just thought of, you have to embody it first. So, for me, I wanted people around me who were thoughtful, who were kind, who were intelligent, who were courageous, meaning that they were not afraid to talk about fear or to talk about growth or to grow. I wanted some, inside jokes, some laughing, and like, the ability to feel connected in that kind of way, this kind of like closeness. So in order for that to happen, I had to do it first. How was I showing up in my content? Was I thoughtful? Was I showing my kindness? Was I showing my humor? Was I showing my courage, right? Was I showing that I am growing and that matters to me and that I am not afraid to take on fear? And how was I embodying what it was that I wanted to bring in? Because if you don't create the vibes first, how are you going to bring in the people who match that vibe? Absolutely not. It won't happen. You must do it first. And this is the part that everybody, I think, gets really stuck on, because they're like, I show up every day and I post 2 times a day. And no one's like, well, you're not, are you really, how are you showing up, right? Like, are you going to other people's posts and creating inside jokes, right? Are you going to someone's post and showing thoughtfulness and that, hey, I see you, I hear you? Are you reposting and amplifying the voices of others to show, I know what you're doing. I got you. I understand what you're doing. If you're not showing that, how in the world do you expect anyone to do that for you? That's not how it works. You must embody it first. It's like anything in life. So that would be my number one piece of advice. Think about what you want to bring in, what kind of vibe you want, and then you embody it first. And then the right people, I promise, the right people, the people who are aligned to that will come in.
That's amazing. And what came to my mind, you're like, you won't attract those people with how-tos.
Right? This is why. That's why it's such a mess. I know. It's like unbelievable. Like, what are you? It's just incredible. You must embody what it is that you want to bring in. So, yeah, I encourage all of you to really think about that. And that means really understanding yourself, right? Understanding what matters to you and what makes you happy. And you should be happy. Every time you hop on those accounts, it should be a joy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I scaled down a little bit my time from going to Twitter because I was focused on Facebook. That was where
Oh,
I found
okay.
my clients. But then I
Yeah.
just go to Facebook, not really to embody anything. It's purely for for lead
Yeah.
generation. That's how I would put it there. But yeah, Twitter definitely an amazing platform to connect with other people in different fields. It feels different than LinkedIn. I don't know if you've been posting content there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Very different.
um,
Very different. LinkedIn, I think this year will be going through some big changes. It's so stuffy. It's so stuffy. And so, so I think slowly, like I've just been myself as always, right? A big proponent of authenticity. So I've just been myself on LinkedIn. And I think it's slowly starting to change this year, and we'll see more of that. Yeah.
what are your projections for LinkedIn in a sense, like
For
the
LinkedIn,
changes that are, yeah.
I think there are a couple of things. I think we're already starting to see a lot more AI tools using AI, because of course they're owned by Microsoft, so that's going to be more and more incorporated into things.
Mm.
I think Gen Z is leading the charge for really saying fuck you to the establishment and all of this corporate stuff, and really just posting what they want to post, because I'm seeing more and more the content changing. Now, of course, you're always going to have those people who like try to manipulate that into a tactic. You see it on Twitter too, and they try to be like, post a selfie and it's like so fake and it's like all this kind of, so there's always going to be people like that no matter what. But I think in general, we're starting to see this shift. There's a lot more conversation around mental health. There's a lot more conversation about work-life balance, a lot more conversation about entrepreneurship, and that 9 to 5s are not, the stability, and all of that stuff that we were promised. There's a lot more differences, I think, in conversation that are happening, and I think we're going to see that get more and more as the year progresses. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I started on LinkedIn for like 2 years ago, I think now. Never been consistent there. That's where I was stuffing the Shopify stuff before coming.
Ah,
But yeah, I mean, it felt like the right platform to do that. In all honesty.
yeah. No, I can totally, no, I can understand that. It's LinkedIn. LinkedIn was, it's my least favorite. LinkedIn is my least favorite because of the fact it is so limited to professional speak, right? That's the thing. Out of all the social platforms, they are the briefcase. They're the briefcase platform that's
Yeah.
focused just on one thing. But now we're seeing it change. So anyone who's hopping onto LinkedIn, be yourself. Talk about the stuff that matters. I just talk about it. I do the same thing on LinkedIn as I do on X. I repost other people's stuff. I amplify their stuff. If I want to say something, I say it my way. I don't give a crap what anyone thinks. And I think that's going to be more and more important to cut through the noise. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. But I do understand still that your favorite platform remains TikTok.
Yeah.
And that brings my few last questions here.
Okay.
I'd say most of my friends, I would say they are not really interested in whether showing their faces or building a personal brand
Mhm.
whatsoever. And there are two type of people still that I would put into, I won't say they put in a box, but two branches. One, they want to get into social media to build a business, so that's solely creating content for the sake of making money.
Yep.
Others, really, they want to go online. Yes, they have in their mind like long-term goal to make money with their presence online, but at the same time they want to, how do I can put that, like influence people in a good way. I
Mhm.
don't have a word
Yeah.
for that, but like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, regardless of like building a business or whatsoever, but still they just feel like they are meant to be online, not necessarily to be an influencer, but to share thoughts, meet new people,
Mhm. Mhm.
and build a business afterwards.
Mhm.
I don't know, but yeah, I feel like those two type of peoples, and they are redirected to the platform of choice based off of that first goal. And
Mhm.
so if someone wants to build, like, their first goal is to, yeah, I want clients for my business, I want to build an online business, going to LinkedIn. And then the other bucket, you have, I want to become a YouTuber, so I just want to go to YouTube, and then maybe in the future I'm going to transition. But others, Danko was, like, I'd say, someone who influenced many, many, many creators to go into Twitter. I was one of those. And the other majority was going just TikTok. TikTok is mostly one of the, actually the only platform that when you go there, you just have people who are in the platform. They don't even have any goal. Like, they are
Yeah.
just on the
Yeah.
platform. And
Yeah.
remember, you cannot have that answer with any other platform. Like Twitter, why are you on Twitter? I'm doing this, this, and that. LinkedIn, I'm doing this, this, and
Interesting.
that. YouTube, doing this, this, and that. TikTok, just on TikTok, just posting video on TikTok, and no goals, no goals. And the business comes after, and they are more successful than people with the intention of building a business. What do you think about that? It's too crazy.
That's an interesting point. But I have several friends who are on Twitter just to be on Twitter, just to hang out and not because they're trying to grow anything, but just because there's super funny memes, or they follow like sports or news, or they're into all of that and they just want to have conversations with other people. And like, I know quite a few people who are just on Twitter. I think that's, and then of course we, like, I have my own personal Instagram. We all have, personal Instagrams, and, Facebook for like keeping up with friends and family, right? And this kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. I think you're right in terms of, no, but then I also know I have several clients who have started on Instagram recently. I think TikTok is just, it's like, how do I explain it?
Yeah,
It's like,
there's no right answer to that.
there's kind of this like free for all, like there's so many different sub segments in TikTok. Like my For You page is such a random sprinkling of all these like different things, like I'm on like I'm on like egg cooking TikTok and like a little bit of fashion TikTok, like a luxury fashion TikTok, a little bit of this, a little bit of like it's like a sprinkling of, and there's so many different like areas that you can get into, like infinite. So and I think that's also why it has had such power in our culture, right? This platform and the effect that it's had on so many people. But you're right, like Instagram and Facebook. I mean, I would never put in the effort to build something there unless it's like for some purpose, right? Like maybe you have a visual business, and so you need to be on Instagram because of the visual part of it. And so, I mean, because it takes so long, because it's such a, yeah, they want you to pay ads, to get boosts in views. They want you to do all that. So it takes so long to build there that this is a very interesting point. So social media, I think, I think something for everyone to keep in mind though is that they were formed for us to be social, right? Those platforms were built for us to connect with one another. So people may use them for their business or whatever, but they can't forget that important point about what the actual point of the platform is. Because if you can keep that in mind, and I think that's why I've done well, rather whatever platform it's on, it's always with the intention of the relationships I'm building, the connections I'm making. And Twitter, by the way, has turned out to be an extraordinary asset to my business not because necessarily direct clients, a couple of them have come from there, but more importantly, the relationships and the network and all of these things that I've been able to build there has been enormously powerful for me. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So,
But
again,
but such an interesting question. I really like that question. Uh, yeah, TikTok is wild.
the conclusion is I'm going to TikTok. Just continuing for fun. I'm going to
Yes, yes,
perhaps
yes.
get back the Japanese account just for the sake of uh, documenting, just for the fun, and then from there we'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, we don't have much more time.
Oh,
I have so many more questions, but I'll keep it to that. Thank you so
okay.
much for
Thank you.
your time, for everything. I know you're busy, and hopefully, I'll get you back on the podcast for another episode. Perhaps update on TikTok, and we'll see what's going on.
Yes, yes. I would love to. Well, I appreciate you so much. I think the world of you. I think from the moment I met you on X, you have had a very clear, very honest voice. And that's something I deeply value. And so thank you for inviting me on and for having me on and allowing me to kind of share some of my thoughts. And I would love to come back and continue our conversation.
Thank you so much for your kind words, and with pleasure. We'll reschedule that in the meantime, and
Okay.
we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.